question. So what do you think you could have done differently this morning in terms of living a more sustainable life? Could you have taken a shorter shower, for example, or brewed only the amount of coffee that you were about to consume, or maybe take a more sustainable mode of transport to the office? So in very simple terms, how do you see you impacting the environment? I would make the claim that for us living in the Western world in all our abundance, there's two things that make things more accessible for us when in terms of sustainability. And number one is that we need to understand the impact we're making. And secondly, to be honest, guys, it has to be relatively simple and easy to adopt. So let's take the example of electricity consumption, for example. Over the recent few months, I think quite a few of you have used different kinds of apps to follow your electricity consumption. So some of us are as old to remember time before social media. Think about how social media has changed our life. Think about how you use your attention and your time these days. So coding, all of this and everything associated with, for example, social media or electricity consumption is a result of coding. So let's think about sustainable living. It's much more than just, climate action. UN came up in 2015 with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals to ensure that we can continue living on this planet in prosperity and in peace. The number 17, the climate action, gets a lot of attention, but to be honest, for example, number 4, education, is really about making that change. So, as we all know, education is an antidote to ignorance, and we need everybody to be educated on these issues. So, as said, these 17 definitions are really the blueprint for our future. Then, if we think about coding in action when it comes to the environment, you could categorize them into very neat packages, meaning concrete actions. And first of all, you can come up with systems that monitor the environment, give researchers, for example, more information on what's going on. Then there's different kinds of tools for monitoring energy use, as I earlier mentioned, the electricity consumption. But also there needs to be different kinds of apps and websites for promoting actions that can be taken on this score. Then you can go into gaming, code different kinds of games for interactive content and teaching, for example, kids about sustainable living and making it interesting, inspiring. And also there can be different kinds of solutions for tracking and monitoring resources. Then let's think about companies. What can companies do in terms of sustainability? First of all, you can these days actually come up with solutions without the need to write one single line of code. So it is about repurposing different kinds of digital assets. And innovation is the key to this, making and understanding the context and making those different kinds of connections. So coders need to understand what they're coding for. But then also a very important point, I think also, is in automation. Once again, another example. During the recent pandemic, we all experienced a huge spike in the use of different kinds of services. They were already there available. The question was, how could code be automated so that people could be really all online at the same time? That was through automation. Then let's have a few words about data. So solutions render obsolete unless data is something that can be utilized for purposes of action or improvement. So it is crucial that coders work closely together with other experts in the field, such as, for example, cloud architects or UX designers or data analysts, because without really understanding what the data is used for and how to best retrieve it for the purpose it's addressing, there's no point. So once again, another example. Let's take the example of a map. So the data depending on the map gives different kind of connotations and information for, let's say, archaeologists or people controlling the traffic. So the data makes all the difference. And coders then cipher that data for the right purpose. Another example, manufacturing. So data enables people to get more information on how to streamline processes so as to lessen the burden on the environment. Well, we have to remember that sustainability is much more than just, like I said, climate change or the environment. We're talking about a sustainable society. So we need to understand that we should be conscious about the damage and overuse of resources. Let's take biodiversity as another example. The Finnish forests. Coding can develop solutions where trees can be felled in the most sustainable way. And we have to be smart about the resources we use. We also need to rethink growth. So economic viability has to have different new connotations. Rethinking growth is about innovation, but it's also about making or actually what I'm trying to say is coders can think about different scenarios and draw that information to decision makers so that they can make long-term calculations and decisions based on the current business and the future. Also, sustainable society is about fairness and justice to everyone that the government and its organizations serve. So accessibility is a very key issue and something that coders need to be aware of. And accessibility means that the services and solutions provided need to be accessible to everyone. So, for example, people with disabilities or different ages and even different genders. Very crucial issues altogether. But coding is also about being human. So to quote Linda Liukas, we are basically all coders, hopefully, in the future. We should not be consumers, we should be creators. And also, coding is really the next or the present and future universal language. Everybody can learn to code. Everybody can learn to understand what coding can do. So code is unbiased. It is only the meaning and the data that we associate to code that then brings it all together. And here is an important point. Coders need to understand the context that they're coding for. And therefore, you have to understand all aspects of humanity. Think about the healthcare systems we have in place. We all know that they've been mind-bogglingly difficult to use by ordinary users. That then might impact actual patients. And what the outcome can be, you can only think. Another thing is that we people are fallible, meaning that, another example, recycling. So for us, most of us know that recycling is very important, but it can be really difficult for us as well. So coders can come up with solutions that make it easier and easier. Every little bit helps. Yes, so coding and sustainability is also about diversity and inclusion. We have to have the same equal opportunities for everyone. Hence, coding is about human rights. And inclusion is about addressing the wider audience, not just segments. So everybody needs to be on board, which means that coders have to come from very diverse backgrounds. You don't need to be technically skilled or from the onset, or be technically minded so as to go into coding. We need people from different backgrounds in coding. And this diversity leads to more innovation, definitely so. A few years back, there was an example of there was a viral video about a soap dispenser, which dispensed soap only for people with white skin. This is a horrible example of coding going wrong. Then there's other health tech products out there that have similar connotations. They don't only recognize white skin, not dark skin, for example. And facial recognition. There's many examples of people not being identified by systems and solutions or artificial intelligence because they come from a different ethnic background or even different gender. Think about surnames. Some applications do not understand anything else except Western TypeScript. So they don't understand surnames written in different languages. Things that need to be dealt with. So I've been talking about coding and sustainability, but then it all boils down to impact. It's about making choices. So when we think of the electric car, I think most of us are considering that our next car will be the electric car. There's some things that still need to be made easier for it to spread wider, so to speak. But coders can work on making, for example, the charging of the car battery faster, more efficient, and so on. And also coders can come up with solutions how we mine those minerals used for car batteries in a more sustainable way. All very important issues. So it's about impact is about making it easier and making everybody understand the impact that they have on the environment. Then if we think about coding and the environment in terms of numbers, I thought that you might be interested in knowing that, for example, data consumption in the world has increased 40-fold during the last 10 years. So that was data consumption, whereas the app size has, on average, increased 200-fold in the past 20 years for the same purpose. So you can imagine the churn on the systems when data is and the solutions and code is just increasing. And digital systems at the moment consume about 10% of worldwide electricity. And different kinds of digital services amount to about 4% of CO2 emissions in the world. So when you consider that internet usage increases every year, about 80%, we are faced with a situation where coding is making a significant impact on the environment and CO2 emissions or consumption in general. So let's turn to green coding. I think this must be quite a familiar concept to you all, but we are in a situation where we basically have limitless programming capabilities at the moment. And this results in maximum reuse of shared frameworks and libraries and whatnot. But the increased development cycles when it comes to product development has also mean that everything is multiplied in terms of development and use. So you can use a lot of different kinds of compression tools when it comes to file sizes. As a coder, you should make note when to use smaller files, when it is enough, and when your high resolution multimedia is, for example, needed. You don't always need to go for the high resolution. Then you, as a coder, you should be aware of the different kind of redundancies, dead code, or different digital artifacts slowing down the development. So you have to be aware of these. And when it comes to programming languages, there's been some studies that, that note that at the moment JavaScript is more sustainable than, for example, Python or Perl. But please go and read about these and consider these in your next program or work, whatever you're doing. All right, so now following on that note, let's close on thinking that how digitalization in general has really improved our lives and continue to improve our lives. So coders are in the business of really improving people's lives. And we provide different kinds of solutions for the everyday, for the everyman, but also for big business and for organizations, for governments and countries. All of this has to happen so that we understand the purpose and we understand how things are used. So it is imperative that you always, as a coder, understand the context, but also understand the user. And therefore, work closely, in close collaboration with people that really understand the user. And use research and data to understand. But also use your own strength, your own background. And hence my point, we need people from different backgrounds in coding. Okay. So I think what I'd like to close with is 2 points. And one of them is that if you're already coding, please keep at it, but also consider how your code can be more sustainable. So study and learn and get to know your coding methods and how sustainable they are. But secondly, also, if you're still considering a career in coding, think about the impact that you can make and come and join us. So I'd like to finish off by the slogan of the company I represent. And thank you. Hope you have a very interesting day.